Number one, super important to me, we're going to reinforce all attempts to communicate. All of them. This, I find, is the number one mistake that we make as parents. That we forget what we're teaching in any given moment. And if what you truly want is to foster communication with a child, then that means you got to reinforce all attempts at it. So it may not be the thing that you want. This means you're not punishing the child if the child stands there and swears at you. I know, everybody take a breath. But if we're fostering communication, then that's the thing that we have to reinforce. You may not like the communication that you're getting, but you have to be thrilled and happy that you are getting communication. And Muhammad, when your child is screaming at you, that is your child trying to communicate with you. Most behavior, all behavior is communication. So this idea of punishing people, we got to let that go. It's got to get pushed to the side. So when your child is screaming, it's not like we're going to give them their sweet treat for that, right? But we need to be listening and paying attention. To have gotten to the point where your child is screaming means that whether it's in that moment or some moment before, he feels like he wasn't able to tell you what he needed. We're going to talk more about this in a second. But we need to get real clear that if we're going to foster language, we have to understand what communication is, and we have to be positive about it, and there can be no punishing for any attempt at communication. And that means that if I'm trying to say cookie and I say guh, oh, we love that, right? And we're definitely going to reinforce that, right? But it also means if I'm standing there and I'm using the F word, I don't get punished. Maybe it's not a reinforcer, like I said, we give the sweet treat, but I don't get punished for communication. And I find a lot of parents, guilty as charged, I have done this in the past before somebody made it really clear. You want this individual to communicate? Stop punishing types of communication that you don't understand and that you don't like. We're going to highly reinforce the kinds of communication that we want to see, but stop punishing, because it's very hard for somebody to understand that. Okay, moving on. Number two, we're going to create opportunities for manding. Manding is when you request. We're going to talk extensively about that. Number three is we're going to use a technique called shaping. And basically what that means is we're going to keep moving the goalposts. Once they get something, we're going to move the goalpost over an inch. And we'll talk about precisely how to do that. Number four, we're going to model communication. Sometimes we shut down and we don't communicate, or we're communicating things that are not what we meant to communicate. I have resting biatch face, and that's not what I mean sometimes. And I have to have that under control when I'm working with somebody that I want to make sure my communication is not negative, right? So we have to model good communication. We're going to utilize visual supports to help people. I put the music notes there on the screen for those of you who are listening in podcasts, because a lot of times people are like, well, I just don't think that we use a lot of it. Yes, we use visual supports all the time. Every time you're on the street and there's road signs, those are visual supports. It's any musician, if we said to them, no, I'm sorry, you're going to have to know it all by heart, music would be a different thing. And it would let some people out who can't memorize everything. So visual supports are good, and we're going to talk about how you can use those to foster communication. We're going to utilize technology, things like phones and iPads, because those are fabulous for language, and we're going to make it fun. I love this puppy with his tongue hanging out. We have to make it fun, because if we don't, we are not really going to be fostering language, okay? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how we keep it simple, because we don't want this complex maze that's on the screen here. We're going to strengthen oral motor, which a lot of people are like, I don't know what that has to do with communication, but it has a lot, because if I am not used to communicating with my mouth and I say something and I'm making the attempt and people can't understand me, then I'm not going to get what I want, and I'm going to stop doing that, and I'm going to start screaming because you didn't understand me. And that's me as a 60-year-old fully verbal person. If I say something and you don't understand me, I'm going to make several attempts, but then I'm going to start yelling. That's the truth. That's the truth. So why wouldn't a kid do that too? And then, of course, always, we want to keep it fair. It has to be fair. What we're asking our kids to do, it has to be fair.